Hello again, and welcome back to the Daily Bread Bible Study. We are looking at Deuteronomy chapters 1 and 2 for today, Friday, February 21st, 2020, day 52. We are starting on the fifth book of the Bible that we have as Christians. So the main emphasis that we see in Deuteronomy is the idea that blessings will come for obedience to God and God's ways, and consequences will come for disobedience. There are a couple themes, and I'll pull from it, especially Deuteronomy chapter 6 is a good one, explaining a lot of the heart of what Deuteronomy is about. It says in Deuteronomy 6:5, "You shall love the Lord with your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding you today in your heart, so that you may go into and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to your ancestors to give you." So the idea is that by keeping the commands that you will be prepared to go into the promised land and receive it. And this is Moses' final speech to the Israelite people there on Mount Nebo is the proposed place, the traditional place on which this speech is taken from in Deuteronomy from Moses. So let's dive into more of the content of what Moses is saying, starting with chapter 1. Should note that the first few chapters are recounting how they arrived to Moab, Mount Nebo, in that area, overlooking the Jordan and seeing the promised land on the other side of the Jordan. So it talks about, the defeat of King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan, and God's command to leave Mount Horeb, or Mount Sinai as it is also called in other texts, and to go to the promised land where the Amorites and the Canaanites were. It says in Deuteronomy 1:8, "See, I have set the land before you. Go in and take possession of the land that I swore to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their descendants after them." Moses connects the appointment of ancestral tribe leaders here to the delegation of judging duties, saying when judging, the principles of fairness, impartiality, and being subject to God's authority apply. Moses can act in some ways as like the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, for harder decisions that are made. Moses also, talks a little bit about Israel's refusal to enter the promised land originally. They set out as God's commanded. They were afraid about entering into the land. Moses recounts the ask of Israel for spies, which he blessed to go into the land. And an optimistic Moses calls the report of the spies a positive one, that the land is essentially flowing with milk and honey. But yet he puts the blame on the pessimistic Israelites, picking it up in Deuteronomy 1, verse 26. "But you were unwilling to go up. You rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. You grumbled in your tents and said, 'It is because the Lord hates us that he has brought us out of the land of Egypt, to hand us over to the Amorites, to destroy us.' Where are we headed? Our kindred have made our hearts melt by reporting, 'The people are stronger and taller than we. The cities are large and fortified up to heaven. And we actually saw there the offspring of Anakim.'" All of these things are a little bit exaggerated by the report of the scouts in Moses' eyes. And Moses recounts the ways God provided for the Israelites, saying that God fought for you against the Egyptians, and God carried you just as one carries a child as well. See, Moses is focused on shaping the narrative as well, too. He says in Deuteronomy 1:32 through 33, "But in spite of this, all these blessings from God, you have no trust in the Lord your God, who goes before you." So the penalty for Israelites' rebellion is recounted here. Not one of this evil generation shall see the good land that I swore to give to your ancestors, except Caleb son of Jephunneh. And your little ones, who you thought would become booty, to them I will give it. That's Deuteronomy 1:39. So Moses just recounting all of the things that we've heard before in Numbers. And the people acknowledge their sin. They gear up for battle, and then they go to fight without God. And the Amorites repel them, and they journey back into the wilderness there as Moses recounts. In chapter 2, Moses says that he leads them by the descendants of Esau and then through Moab. And an interesting point here, it sounds like in some ways he's talking more about the 9.5 tribes here because, as it said, the land of Gilead, there around Moab is where the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the Manassites, inherit. But Deuteronomy 2 makes it very clear that this land of the Moabites and the Amorites is blessed by God, so you have to take very good care for it. It says, "Do not harass Moab and engage them in battle, for I will not give you any of its land as a possession, since I have given Ar as a possession to the descendants of Lot. I will not give the land of the Ammonites to you as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot." So that land of Ar and the land of the Ammonites, one and the same, not going to be given to them, but to the descendants of Lot, as we discussed when Lot chose the land with Abraham in Genesis 13. That was on day 4 of our Daily Bread Bible study. So those Moabite lands, the Ammonite lands, not blessed by God to take. Moses tries to explain in even more detail how the Israelites are not taking away the land of the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Edomites, which would be against God's promise to Lot and to Esau, respectively. Moses explains that other nations can get dispossessed by God, which is how the Ammonites and Edomites received some of their land. So speaking of being dispossessed, we see the defeat of King Sihon here, and that's the rest of chapter 2 tells about the defeat of King Sihon. We discussed him on day 46, focusing on Numbers chapters 19 through 21. Here, Moses calls the king of Sihon of Heshbon. Previously in Numbers, he was called King Sihon of the Amorites, but it's the same guy. Deuteronomy 2:30 through 31 says, "But King Sihon of Heshbon was not willing to let us pass through, for the Lord your God had hardened his spirit and made his heart defiant to order his hand over you, as he has done now. The Lord said to me, See, I have begun to give Sihon his land over to you. Begin now to take possession of his land." So, following the orders of God, they utterly destroyed all the men, women, and children and left not a single survivor, as it says in verse 34. This is to avoid what God was wanting them to avoid, is being influenced by the people of the land and not being God's ways, and being influenced by all of these foreign gods, the gods of Baal, and as we had discussed in depth at the end of Numbers as well too. But we will pick it up next time with another king becoming dispossessed, and we will see what God has in store for us in Deuteronomy 3 next time.